No. No.
Hello everyone, and welcome home. A couple months back, I covered an analog horror series going by the name of the Mckinney Family Home videos. It kind of brought in a new era to the channel, so there's really no better way to bring in the new year than covering the final few released videos. And to glaze the series for a second, I really love how gritty it can be at times and how dark it can feel purely through implication. And I'm glad that in this quote-unquote season 2, it kept the same vibe. And if you haven't seen the previous video, I'd recommend watching it first or checking out the original series, but here's a quick summary. A father named Dwayne moves into a new home with his family. Cult shenanigans happen, Dwayne slowly becomes possessed and both directly and indirectly kills his whole family, dies, and scene. If that wasn't as detailed as you need, don't worry, I will have a fully full timeline near the end with any corrections to the previous video, as well as a very special guest for an interview. So let's drop in on our favorite religious cult and see if we can finally put together the full picture with the final few videos. A total of 7 new videos have been released, varying in when they take place. They dance all around the timeline, but a majority of them take place around the beginning of the story. As usual, we'll go through them in the order they were released in, and I won't be going over any previous videos that we've covered, so we'll start from where we left off, which would be Dwayne hunting trip. I'll do my best to point out where we are in the timeline, and at the end, I'll attempt to put together the whole thing. And don't worry, I didn't get any special insights into the story, I didn't ask any lore questions in the interview, so all the story insights made are on my own volition. And with that, let's begin with the first follow-up video released. So these first 4 videos begin with an acronym, COTHM. We'll learn the meaning of this shortly. The starting one is titled COTHM Belief and Community, 1989, with a description of May Lilith bless you. It opens with some archival text stating it's property of the Church of the Holy Mother, COTHM, dated at March 2nd, 1989, setting it as the earliest video that we've seen. It's described as a promotional video for the church and was created by Diana Mckinney, which we can ascertain to be Dwayne's mother, who up until now has been a pretty elusive character, with not much known about her. The promo begins with a few simple questions. Do you feel lost? Maybe a little bit. Are the pressures of the world becoming too much? Kinda. Do you just need someone to talk to? I guess so. Have you tried church? Oh. The Church of the Holy Mother is here to help. We are a local community of believers in God, His angels, and their divine power. Though Lucifer took 1/3 of the angels with him when he was cast out of heaven, the Church of the Holy Mother believes that not all of these angels receive damnation. So we see here that this church maybe divulges a bit from typical beliefs. And included in this is their worship of Lilith. And Lilith essentially was Adam's supposed first wife in the garden, but was exiled due to not complying with Adam's will. The church believes that, quote, Lilith, the first wife of Adam, was spared from damnation and has been given a unique communication between heaven and hell, unquote. And following this, we get our first instance of the footage glitching. Welcome back, Mckinney Family Home videos. Lilith is a gift from God. Through her, we are able to communicate with loved ones who are near and dear to us, and those who are no longer with us. Do you wish to meet the Holy Mother and grow closer to God? And beneath the text, we get to see all the lovely cult members. And you better believe, if I'm going to join a religious cult, I would not be caught dead wearing any of these lame-ass outfits. One interesting thing to point out in this text is the fact that they claim to be able to communicate with loved ones who are no longer with us, which would line up with some of the text we see overlaid in past videos. In the next slide, we get a location drop of where this all takes place. Opossum Creek, Rustburg, Virginia. Just gonna add that to my list of places to never visit. What do you have to lose? I don't know, maybe my wife, 2 kids, and my sanity, but I guess other than that, nothing much. The promo cuts out with some static, and the closing shot is a cross, I think, and the text, they will follow me. Following that, the next video is called COTHM, Welcome Home, 1991. You were never alone. We see that it takes place on August 27th, 1991, and has been archived by Diana Mckinney. We get an establishing shot of an attic entrance, and then there's a few inside the attic with text following. Bless this home, and give your family peace. They're all waiting for you. We return back to the attic and hear someone speaking downstairs, and this video actually takes place during another one, Move-In, 1991. And this isn't just a theory. If you listen to these two clips, the audio matches up perfectly.
I'm super looking forward to it. I think the kids are really going to love it. I'm super looking forward to it. I think the kids are really going to love it.
And I think this is just the coolest thing ever. I love that it actually connects back to the first video, adding additional context. And it's just so creepy to think that during the original video, there's just some dude goofing around in the attic while Dwayne is recording. We see a spot of blood on a post, and the camera pans down to reveal the man's hand hovering over a bloody sigil. He places some objects on the sigil. I'm not sure what they are, maybe glass or meat. He crushes them all up in his hand and starts to weep, rather painfully.
What a baby.
He regains his composure and starts to speak in reverse. I'll reverse the clip so we can actually understand what he's saying. It can be a little hard to understand, so I'll put some subtitles.
I am not the first. You will not get the last. She's already inside you. This blessing I do pass.
After this, the footage glitches out again, going back to the shot of the entrance. Demonic noises are heard with the accompanying text. I never left. My family is gone, but she promised. If I do what I'm told, it's your turn. I'm so sorry. The noise increases in volume as a face appears in the attic. It cuts to a gate, and the final text of the video is, "The door will open. I'm coming home soon." So this video seems to depict the previous recipient of whatever happened to Dwayne passing on this blessing. But who is this mystery person? Well, maybe we'll get our answer in the next video. COTHM. The Walden Family. 1990. Yeah, forget the Mckinney family. We fucking with the Waldens now. Description reads, when the door opens. In the archival text, we see that this video roughly takes place 1 year prior to the previous. It begins with some random shots, but then cuts to footage of the Waldens. The same ones from the wedding photo, all the way back in the first video. It's footage of a relatively casual conversation with the wife talking to her friend about another friend who recently had a baby. And it cuts further into the conversation where they're talking about the name of the baby. And I'm not sure if I'm hearing this exactly right, but it sounds like the name Diana is dropped.
Does she even?
Is that not psycho? Is that not crazy? And so Amanda was like, yeah, she was going to try to name her May.
During this conversation, the camera lingers on a specific piece of art, in the same style of all the specific demons we've seen thus far. And a cool thing about this photo in particular is we can actually see it on the floor of the basement in Move-In 1991. The conversation continues as the wife brings up a strange occurrence of the husband Josh waking her up in the middle of the night, saying something about the alarm, and asking if there's something in the lock in the door, mentioning someone breaking in. In addition to this, she says that he was repeating a weird phrase, but neither of them can remember what he was saying.
He kept saying that there was, like someone was going to break in or something, but he just kept repeating this thing where it was a weird phrase. I can't remember what it was. It was like, oh, I told you this. What did you say?
I don't know.
Following this is footage from a car on a road. This may or may not be the same road from Christie Baptism. Not entirely sure. The car stops to park, and we see some mountains illuminated by the moon, with the text, "Yes, you do." Maybe a response to Josh claiming he didn't know the phrase he was repeating. Then the main star reappears. Jesus cosplay, my beloved. I know I called it Jesus cosplay, but I actually think that this is supposed to be Lilith due to new information, so I'll refer to it as such. Hear my voice. If you do what you're told, You will be reunited. I love how the noises that emit from Lilith in this shot sound like demented trumpet noises. And I also like how the way that this is filmed make it seem like one of those angel sighting videos you'd find on YouTube. A closet appears on the screen with the text reading, "Love endures all things." This message is also seen on Diana's painting from Move-In 1991. The last two shots are of a super loud TV where laughing can be heard, and a dark angel hidden behind static. Some things I think we can take from this video and the prior video, taking into account the fact that we won't see the Waldens again, is that completing these tasks laid out by Lilith end in death. But reading through the lines, they might still be around, living in some sort of VHS purgatory with the Mckinneys meeting a similar fate years later. The last video branded under the Church of the Holy Mother name is COTHM, The Path to Divination, 1991. Find it. The creation of this video being roughly 3 months before Dwayne moves in. The video consists of just one long shot of a painting, meanwhile a shadow paces in front of it. During this, a sermon from Diana Mckinney herself plays in the background. The sermon is roughly 5 minutes long, but I'll summarize the main important bits. She begins with speaking on how God gave us all our minds and bodies, relating it to sacrifice.
What I'm talking about is sacrifice. God gave you your body, your mind, and your free will, and in an instant, he could take it away. But that is not the will of the Lord.
All this being said, she goes on to say how we still do have the freedom to question, although it comes at a cost.
You will lose everything seeking the truth. And once you see that truth, can you accept it?
She then launches into an anecdote on how when she met her husband and had Dwayne, they were not churchgoers. And one day, after watching her husband Richard work multiple jobs to keep them alive, she turned towards religion and eventually convinced Richard to go look at some of the local churches, but found problems with them.
We tried many and found this calloused mindset all around. It wasn't about God, no. It wasn't about salvation, no. It was about pride.
This continued until they met Lilith.
Some of you, like me, have even seen her yourself. I'm talking about Lilith. Lilith, who has given us everything.
After some time, Richard passed away when Dwayne was in his teens. This seems to be when Lilith attempted to attach herself to Dwayne, but at some point he, quote, abandoned his faith. However, this portion of the sermon ends with Diana proclaiming that he is coming home, and Lilith spoke it into existence. The footage changes, portraying a more demonic vision of the painting, now soaked in blood. Diana then states that Lilith, demoness of the night, will now call this place her home, and use it as a place to rest, definitely painting both her and Lilith in a much more sinister light, with this being her final statement.
Dwayne, my son, welcome home.
Subsequently, the next video goes back to the original naming convention, and is much more in line with what we've seen before. It's titled Jezebel 1997. Description is, "You took him from me." This video is actually from Jessica's perspective. And if you don't remember, Jessica is Dwayne's wife. And I'd like to make a slight retraction. In the previous video, I claimed that Dwayne is the one who killed Jessica and, ate her. But after seeing this video, I no longer think that's the case. The video starts with a walk through the woods. A Christian song can be heard distantly playing, so perhaps it's near a church. It takes place a little before a Dwayne hunting trip, judging by the weather. She comes across the ruins of a home. I don't believe it's the Mckinney home. In fact, I think it might be the same house from Grandma's home, but I don't have much to confirm that other than the dilapidated state of everything. She perches outside and waits for nightfall. This is holy ground. She then enters the building. Eerie noises and movement can be heard, along with objects moving seemingly on their own. She then sees a lit candle. Someone was here. Her movement then becomes a bit more cautious, moving towards the bedroom. They are gone now. The camera then lingers on a photo of two people, And since it lingers on it for so long, I'm gonna go ahead and assume that this is Diana and Richard Mckinney. But I'm still here. Unsettling slow music starts playing as Lilith slowly fades onto the screen. I grant you eternal life, and in exchange, I shall have your skin. What follows, while nothing is shown, is a very disgusting picture with screams of agony and ripping sounds, so I'll do you the displeasure of having to hear it. It is nearly time. I want to talk about the name Jezebel for a second. The meaning behind it being an immoral woman who deceives people in order to get what she wants. She may be referred to as this by Lilith due to her probably attempting to stop Dwayne from carrying out what Lilith wants. Because, you know, she probably doesn't want her husband to go on a crazy murder spree. The penultimate video is just titled by date, October 9th, 1992. About a year after move-in 1991, we will be together again. An argument is heard in the background as the video begins. The argument is between Dwayne and Jessica. Dwayne is insistent that something is going on, and goes on about how being in this house is changing him.
I don't know what it is, but being in this house, being so close, it's like I know what she was talking about. I know what she meant all of a sudden.
Also adding that his kids can see that something is off about him.
I look at our kids and it's like they look right through me. It's like they're looking at me, but there's something behind me that they're always looking at and always afraid of.
Jessica, however, is dismissive of all of this.
Okay, and then there's this. What is this? This friction here between us. I tell you that something is going on, and you look at me like I'm crazy, like you can't see it either.
Dwayne then hears something coming from his daughter's room and goes to investigate, finding that she is watching a tape. This tape being audio from Diana's sermon.
Where did you get this tape?
Grandma gave it to me.
What do you mean Grandma gave it to you? You haven't seen Grandma in months. Who gave you this tape? Where did you get this tape?
Dwayne, now fed up with all of this, has one of his famous crash-out moments and decides to smash the VHS in the basement, but finds odd objects inside, similar to those we saw in the attic tape.
Is that a tooth? What the?
I believe this is the moment where Dwayne sealed his fate and lost control of his body, and I think Dwayne realizes this too, as this is the last time chronologically where we hear him speak.
No. No.
It's too late. They know what you are. Monster. Alright, we've made it. The final tape. Are you ready? There is no title for this tape. It simply goes by illegible. It is finished. This video is split up into a few different parts, but it starts off with a direct continuation of Move-In 1991, showing the same dead end that we can see in Jessica Homecoming 1998 and Dwayne Hunting Trip 1997, confirming that both take place on the Mckinney property. He shows off the property, nothing too interesting, but then he starts to head towards a shed, one that might look kind of familiar. He mentions that it's his first time going inside, and how Jess is scared of it. Once entering the shed, there's a few different objects, like a Bible and a wreath, as well as running power. With everything being a bit of a mess, he remarks on how it seems that someone left in a hurry. Hard cut to one of the cult members under the moon, and this is what I'm talking about. Now we get the real religious cult outfits. The harvest is upon us. We have abandoned our tongues. The same dead end is shown, showing that they are on the house property. We have given up our names. We relinquish our humanity. To you, and to her. The camera is then seen approaching a cross draped in a cloth. You are my loyal servant. What follows is a montage of every single moment from the series, with screams and Diana's laughter heard in the background as text appears in the center, reading, "Vengeance is yours. Everything." We return to the scene where now there is a fire beneath the cross. A figure is seen hanging on the cross, and the text, "Dry your tears. You will be with me in paradise." We get a closer look at the person on the cross, and I'm not entirely sure if it's Lilith as the hairline and color is slightly different, but I'll just assume she had a glow up. Diana, my child. The harvest has begun. It cuts back to Dwayne for a quick second, as he's about to leave the shed, but he hears something and turns around, but there's nothing there. A pretty cool callback to when he sees Lilith for the first time. He walks over to the spot and sees a VHS tape on top of some cardboard, along with what he ascertains to be blood. It switches back to the nighttime scene, where we see cult members surrounding the cross, with Lilith turning around, revealing they are now holding a baby. What will you name this child? She will love it. The camera person is then seen running away as the cult members watch on. It cuts to a peephole in a wooden door, and an eyeball appears with labored breathing, and text stating, "This was never your home," cutting again showing Dwayne filming Welcome Home. It is your tomb. Man, poor Dwayne. He's got people in his attic doing rituals, stalkers filming him, and cult members vandalizing his property. Amazing Grace starts to play, and we get the final shot of the series, and I think it's only fitting if I let it play out. Real quick, before we get to the full timeline, I want to try to dive into the inner workings of this cult. So it seems like, after someone dies, that they aren't dead in the typical sense, rather, the metaphorical door opens for them to join Lilith in some sort of afterlife. But I'm not sure. They don't really seem happy in it. It appears that people like Dwayne, who are dissenters, kind of seem to be forced into the role of somewhat forcibly recruiting people into this, or, killing them. One last thing, the people that do still seem to be alive may not be fully in control, or in control at all. I think what may explain the discrepancies between Lilith's multiple looks is that they're not actually her body, but people she's using as flesh puppets, supported heavily by this scene. It seems that the women may be more valuable to this cult for Lilith, as the men are more designated to do her bidding, and she doesn't really care what happens to them after, considering she kind of just lets Dwayne go. Yet, he still does come back. I saw an interesting theory in the comments of a Dwayne hunting trip stating that Lilith at the end could be Jessica. Although this can be debunked with the newer videos, I think the concept can still hold true. With all that out of the way, we can now get to the timeline, which will cover all the videos, except the last one. I'm gonna be honest, it kinda stumps me, so I'm gonna throw out multiple theories for it after the timeline. Let's begin. The earliest point in the timeline sees a young Diana Mckinney with her husband Richard, and their child, Dwayne. One day, Diana starts to feel a pull towards religion and asks Richard to check out some of the local churches, but they don't find any to their liking. But they do find Lilith. Fast forwarding to Dwayne's teens, and Richard suddenly passes away. Now it's unclear how this happens, but I have a hunch it might have something to do with Lilith. Dwayne, obviously devastated, has to find a way to cope. However, when religion is offered, he rejects it, likely having to do with how Diana treated the subject, being very strict and somewhat abusive. He chooses to leave, abandoning his faith, and starting his own family. It's 1989 now, and the Church of the Holy Mother is thriving, no doubt helped by Diana Mckinney, who likely leads large facets of it and helps with the promotion. Enter the Walden family. In 1990, the Walden family, members of the church, are in the up and up, seemingly doing well, even expecting a child, but Josh Walden is experiencing something. A curse of sorts. One that seems to have a long lineage. It's not entirely clear how he loses his family or if they still walk the earth, but he eventually does. But the Waldens are not the only family having problems at this point, as the McKinneys are having their own rough patch of sorts. Looking for a fresh start, Diana suggests they move closer to her, and Dwayne, in all probability thinking he might have been too harsh on his mother, agrees. Diana is not surprised by this, as it has been ordained by Lilith, so she begins to prep for Dwayne's punishment. She prepares a tape for Dwayne to find and recommends him a church, knowing full well that once he shatters that tape, his fate is sealed. All the cult members are prepped for the moment that Dwayne arrives. They ready their cameras, and Josh Walden finally passes on his blessing. Dwayne, lured into a false sense of security by the church and fucking heavily with the vibes, continues to attend for the time being. But things begin to look off. In 1992, Dwayne is definitely starting to realize what's happening. His kids look right through him, and he's beginning to understand all the crazy things Diana told him as a child. The final straw is when he hears his daughter Christy listening to the tape he found in the shed and already got rid of. He takes it and smashes it, but it's already too late. He is no longer in control of his will. Dwayne begins to make sacrifices. Could be random people, maybe dissenters, doesn't matter. Whoever Lilith wants, including his own daughter, who is eventually taken by the cult in 1993. He can do nothing but watch on. Things continue on. He, in all likelihood, switches between being in control and not being in control. One day he's murdering a child, another he's putting up fun Halloween decorations. With the last bit of free will that Dwayne has, he decides enough is enough and sets out for revenge, starting a fire in his mother's home, hoping that killing Diana will stop everything. However, this backfires, as his only remaining child was inside. Here is where I'd like to make another retraction. I think that given how the account that hosts these videos responds to comments, Diana Mckinney is still alive. Also, the channel description used to say, "My son, what have you done?" but I didn't get a screenshot of this. It's at this point where Jessica decides to leave, and honestly, who could blame her? Dwayne continues as normal, probably just hanging out with people from the church. Yet he still misses Jessica immensely, but I don't think he'll ever see her again. As in 1997, Lilith offers Jess a deal. Jess can have eternal life in paradise, and in exchange, Lilith will take her body. And Jess, likely wanting to see her children again, takes the deal. And now, with everything taken from Dwayne and his tasks completed, Lilith sets him free and tells him to never come back. But Dwayne, having nothing left to live for and being haunted by everyone he has ever hurt, decides to return in 1998 to the Mckinney property, likely knowing what will happen, and is promptly devoured. And now, with Dwayne gone, Diana Mckinney can return, and the church can continue their activities long into the future, with Lilith and Diana finally having the vengeance they were looking for. As for the last video, I have two theories, and I'm not confident in either of them. My first theory is that this child that is being born is Dwayne, and that this person on the cross is Diana. This would mean that this footage takes place long before all the other videos, and that Dwayne's fate was destined from the moment he was born. The problems with this, though, is that VHS technology was not invented until 1977, and this footage would need to be filmed at the very least in, 1960. And while we did have color video back then, I don't know if it was very widespread. Another problem is it's somewhat unclear whether or not Dwayne was already born by the time Diana joined the church, which leads me to theory number 2, that the child being born is Lilith. Maybe tired of puppeting around bodies, she would want one of her own. Or maybe it could be the devil or something, as it stated that a sort of harvest has begun. I don't know. My favorite theory is the first one, although it doesn't really make sense. But the more likely theory is the second one. Or it's something else entirely. Let me know what you guys think. Maybe it could be Dwayne being reborn, or another Dwayne-esque character. Died 1998, born illegible. Welcome back, Dwayne Mckinney. Okay, so now with all my yapping out of the way, we can finally get to the interview. I sent a couple questions over to the creator of the Mckinney Family Home videos and got some audio responses back, and it was all pretty interesting. So here it is, the man himself.
Hi, I'm Nick Truffaut. I'm the creator of the Mckinney Family Home videos. I live out here in rural Virginia with my wife Molly, who played Jessica in the series, and our Frenchie Mabel, who did a lot of the voice acting for the monsters in the series.
My first question was, so what was your inspiration for creating the series?
Well, I wanted to create something that made you internally ask yourself, is this real when you watched it? I feel like a lot of analog horror and found footage media in general was kind of missing that recently. And I've been making short films here and there for the last decade. And so I knew the basics of basic filmmaking before we started putting Mckinney together, but this was definitely different from anything that I had ever made before. And I would say the biggest inspirations on the series were Silent Hill 2, Twin Peaks, and the end of Evangelion. With Silent Hill 2, you've got a tortured husband. For the Twin Peaks, we have this father who doesn't realize that he's killed his daughter. And the end of Evangelion is kind of the ego death and existential dread personified throughout the series.
Are you religious yourself?
I'm definitely no longer a religious person, but I grew up in the Bible Belt in a Southern Baptist community. So I've been a part of mega churches as well as hole-in-the-wall churches tucked away on the outskirts of town. And I've definitely seen the pitfalls of both. I do consider myself a pretty anti-religious person, but not to say that I would demonize people who are. Life is hard, and for some people religion helps, but in my personal experience, religion just ultimately does a lot more harm than good.
Any specific analog horrors or other horror media that inspired you?
Definitely the McPherson tape was a big inspiration on the overall atmosphere of the story, as well as movies like Skinamarink. I wanted to try to combine the atmosphere, or that atmosphere, with things like Winter of '83 or Gemini Home Entertainment. I know obviously a big difference being that most of those examples are about aliens, and I wanted something where religious trauma was going to be the sole antagonist.
What is the process like for creating each episode?
The creation process was genuinely a wild thing. Molly and I, we moved into this house, which is the Mckinney house, and wanted to make a little horror short almost as a way of christening in our living here. We were renting at the time. It was old, kind of creepy, middle of nowhere. We have one neighbor who lives 30, 40 yards away from the house. And at the time it was a house and he had an RV in the front of it. And he lived in the RV, but still we never saw him. But we shot the first video, which would later become Jessica Homecoming. And I submitted that short to some film festivals, and I'm pretty sure it got into 2 or 3. And we had received some pretty good feedback from it, and I started filming the rest. If we left the house, camera went with me. If it was 2 o'clock in the morning and I wasn't asleep, I was in the woods filming B-roll for just some kind of inspiration to keep this thing going. And ultimately, I ended up creating this sort of like Dogma 95 series of rules for making videos, or making more videos in the Mckinney series. Like, for instance, in Scaremare, the rule was that we had to build the set from scratch. We had this idea, we filmed it literally during our Halloween party, but we spent the 2 months prior deconstructing the garage and building these walls made out of cardboard, buying these little animatronics. My friend Nick also did like this whole like soundscape for the whole thing. Other things like Bible study, the rule was that we had to at least break one law while filming it. So we not a major thing, but we broke into the graveyard in Bible study to film there. Ended up getting caught towards the end. Actually, the last shot that of the church was the last thing I filmed right before somebody with a flashlight came up and was like, "Hey, what are you doing here?"
What was the most enjoyable video to create, and which one is your favorite final product?
Definitely Scaremare was the favorite to bring to life. When we decided that we were going to build the set, I called all my friends with trucks and we took everything out of the garage and we started building the haunted house from the ground up. We literally had like scotch tape on the ground to map out the walkways and whatnot. And it ended up being just a really cool time. And we actually, like I said, it was during our Halloween party. So we had people come over and walk through it who loved it, or a couple people that were like, that was really scary. So it was just cool being like, oh, I'm filming this, and also having outsiders getting to be a part of it in some way. But I think my favorite one to rewatch, or like favorite final product, I kind of bounce back and forth between Dwayne's hunting trip and Illegible. While I like all the other ones, and I think most of the series is a lot more atmospheric. Dwayne hunting trip and Illegible came out exactly like I wanted. Lilith came to life so quickly, and even though I knew the guy playing Lilith, it still sends this little chill down my spine every time I see her. We have the prop version of her that was hanging on the cross in my basement, and every now and again we have a fridge downstairs, so I'll run down to get a drink, and it's just sitting there in the corner, and it wigs me out every now and then. I should probably put it somewhere else.
How do you feel about the reception the series has received so far?
The reception has been, it's overwhelmingly positive, and I never imagined this would take off really at all, much less get a physical release and go to streaming all in 1 year. There's always going to be some negative comments here and there, but that's to be expected of really anything you put out into the world. And ultimately, I love the fan base, and I love how involved everybody got, and how people started commenting like in character as cult followers that were all going to this fictitious, church, this Church of the Holy Mother. It was just, we had like one guy who was commenting like on every video when we first started, when, before it had even taken off, who was like commenting in character. And so, by the time Illegible came out, and most of the comments are either in character or just people, saying how much they liked it. It was just such a bewildering experience.
Any fun facts about the series or any interesting production stories?
All right, I've got 3. Fun fact number 1. In Scaremare, in the last round of Dwayne, who was me, I camera guy, I played Dwayne, walking through the haunted house. I waited until everyone had either left our party that night or was in our house. Our garage is detached from the house. It's like 50 yards away. So I waited till dead of night. Nobody's in there. We cut the power off, and I start doing one last lap through there with the only light that I had was on my camera. But when I rounded that last corner, and I can't really see too much in front of my face, I round the last corner, and I saw my friend sitting in the chair in front of the TV. The scene cuts, and it's because I literally dropped the camera because I didn't realize that somebody was still in there. And it was gross too, because the chair that he was sitting in had like been in that garage since before we had owned the house. Like that chair is disgusting. Fun fact number 2, in the welcome home video, the original owners of the house are discussing how the husband has been talking in his sleep about someone breaking in, and that entire dialogue was not scripted. I invited them over. They were the people in that video are the actual original owners of the house. That is their picture in Move-In 1991. And I told them I was filming an episode and to just act completely natural. And the second time I turned the camera on, my friend Josh just started talking about having these dreams where, someone's breaking in. And so I let the camera roll, cut it where I needed to. But it was just so weird that was just an actual thing that he said. And it lined up really perfectly with what his character is supposed to be experiencing. And fun fact number 3, all of the monster sounds you hear in the series are my dog just snoring. I recorded her a couple of times and then just threw some effects on it in post, and it came out really creepy. And I would be up like late at night editing. I didn't have any headphones on while we were editing, and my dog would sit next to me and kind of give me like a head tilt when she could hear me messing with her snoring, which was kind of fun.
Anything or anyone you'd like to shout out?
Oh, definitely. I definitely want to shout out everyone who made Mckinney happen, starting with my wife, Molly, for being beyond helpful in pre- and post-production, and definitely kind of being the motivating force behind it. There were definitely times where it was like, I don't know where this is going, and she was super helpful in keeping the momentum alive. I definitely want to thank my friend Matthew Burnside. He played Lilith, and he did half of the paintings for the series. I did all the paintings in blank, but all the portraits of Lilith, I think that he did all the Lilith portraits, and there's a clip where Dwayne is watching appears across the screen, which is a painting that I actually have that he made for me for my birthday well before we started filming Mckinney. And I want to shout out, big shout out to Rob Gavigan for giving the series the life it has now. I mean, he posted that one video of the first 3 episodes, and I think that I got like 1,000 subs in 24 hours. It was crazy. I was, when Mckinney started, like I was just posting videos on this YouTube channel every 2 weeks. We had filmed the entire series already. So the plan was to just upload an episode every 2 weeks and then just let it disappear into obscurity, and maybe in like 10 years, some random YouTuber would be like, top 5 weirdest YouTube channels that you've never heard of or something like that. And he really kicked things off there with that. I mean, a few days after that, Soupy Soup did her video, and I think from then on for a couple months, it was like a video every other week. Somebody would do their breakdown of it. I would also really like to shout out glitchwitch.jpg. She did 2 videos on the series and designed the box art for the VHS release. Genuinely a fantastic person to work with. Big shout out to Retro Release Video for distributing the VHS tapes. Got my copies just in time for the holidays. And lastly, I'd like to shout out Found TV for putting the feature-length cut of the first season onto their streaming platform. It's been a pretty eventful 2024.
What's next?
So we are working on a new project right now, tentatively titled A House in Virginia, but I'm positive that's going to change in the next year or so. It's in the very early stages still, but we are very excited to get to work. There's some heavy inspiration from things like House of Leaves and The Caretaker on this, so it'll require some actual funding, but we're pretty optimistic about it. But again, seriously, thank you so much for this opportunity and for making videos about the series. I just wanted to tell a story about religious trauma in a mostly realistic found footage universe, and it's so cool seeing people like yourself, interested in the series and genuinely locking in on it. But I hope you like our next project just as much. Thank you so much.
And thank you all for watching. Big shout out to the Mckinney Family Home videos. It was really cool of him to do an interview. I never thought while making my first video that I'd be interviewing the creator for the second. So thank you to him. I really appreciate it. Even though I'm a little bit less confident in my theories this time around, I enjoyed every single video. The series was truly amazing. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Apologies for it taking so long to come out, but if you made it this far, thank you. And I hope to see you in the next one. Bye bye.